Hey everyone, welcome to the Between the Slides podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Pinnell. Thanks so much. We're just past 25 episodes, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy, I think, over the 1,340 or so folks that have listened, downloaded. I appreciate you going on this journey with me. And just want to let everybody know up front, I'm going to take a little break. I recently moved, got boxes everywhere, got the new studio set up, though, that we're recording in. So want to really focus on shoring up the value add from each of the episodes, from episodes coming up, from getting some great guests lined up. And so I just need to do that. It's the best thing for myself, for my family. We'll certainly be back for sure. I enjoy this. I hope you all do. So in this episode, I'm going to share what I learned from my first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition that I just participated in April 27th in the Richmond, Virginia area. It was outstanding. I'll get into that in a little bit when I talk about my after action and what I'm going to focus on. And then also kind of share another concept, another thing I've talked about, which isn't unique to me, but something that really is kind of strong in my mind these days. And that's the idea of the life pivot. And I talked about that a bit probably throughout, but more specifically in episode 23, where I really talked about the garage gym and the impact it had on me, and really more so the challenge and those kind of things. And so we'll circle back to that in a minute. So the model I'm going to use today is from my emergency management days of the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program After Action Report Improvement Plan, or AARIP template. And so about halfway through that document, there's an improvement plan table, and it's really good to help you formulate all the notes you've taken from an exercise or an incident or whatever else, to try and get better, and then to put dates to those and put responsible parties. And so really the columns, if you can picture an Excel table, the columns are: there's capability, there's observation title, there's recommendation, there's corrective action, the capability element, primary responsible agency, agency point of contact, start date and completion date. So it's very, it's focused on exercises, hence, HC, which is Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program. However, I've used this on real incidents, which is great too, to capture lessons learned in a more formal way. And so I'm going to use it for myself, and I did in one of my Instagram posts yesterday on the exercise that I did and the workout I did, focused on the conditioning that I think will help with my jiu-jitsu and just in life. And I'm doing that, getting back into that pretty regularly. I got pretty lazy over the last few months, and by lazy, I mean I just didn't exercise as much in my gym. I definitely got my steps and lifting things in and all that with, for those of you all that have moved, which is, a lot of you, and especially moved a whole house full of stuff, you'll lift and move and turn and twist. And so I definitely burned the calories and did that, but didn't condition and train as well as I could have, or as focused as I could have or should have. Let's be honest with myself there. So that's the format I'm going to use. So the first capability for me that I need to focus on, I think, is conditioning. And I felt that in my first match. So I was in the 30 plus, which is, 30 years and older, beginner. So, new, which I am, white belt division, no gi. So like submission grappling. So the tight rash guard kind of thing, and the fight shorts is what I had on. And so very similar to a wrestling match with, chokes and arm breaking things or legs. And so I felt my conditioning, and I felt the adrenaline dump about halfway through my first match, which was surprising. I've rolled quite a bit as a new guy, done open mats where I've been there for a while, rolled, many times, and was gassed for sure, and learned a ton, and it was great, but wasn't, didn't have the dump that I did, and had some great feedback from one of my instructors about, how real adrenaline dumps are. You get in there and you're confident, and I wasn't used to competition and felt really good. And you focus on one thing when you should focus on another, and then it feels like your strength isn't there, which is weird. By the second match, you get into it a little bit more, and the gist of it, just need to keep training jiu-jitsu and get better at it. Need to make sure my conditioning's up to par. I need to focus more on my tournament preparation, and I know I didn't do that as much. There are certainly external factors to that with everything going on in my life. Around the same time on the same timeline. But if you're going to commit to the tournament, that's one thing I'd tell myself is, hey man, you signed up for this, you wanted to do this, so put more effort into that and try and balance those things out. So I'm going to go through the same format that I mentioned in that table. So for me, it was a three folks were in my bracket. And so I ended up 0-2 in third place though, which is awesome. So I got a cool U.S. grappling medal. So kudos to U.S. grappling too. They just put on an outstanding event. Great folks there. Great refs, judges, coaches from Revolution BJJ. Just did an outstanding job. So for me, my first capability that I'm going to observe for myself or that I'm going to evaluate is conditioning, right? The observation time is about halfway through the first match. Really felt that dump, felt like, man, I can't breathe. I'm doing this or that. I kind of freaked myself out. And that, what I've talked about in episode 23, doing hard things makes things easier and rolling in jiu-jitsu and all that. For some reason, my mind was just gassed out, but I had to tell myself, hey, man, you can breathe, be quiet, calm down, move, and then, rolled over, got back on top, didn't get counted as a sweep, but got in a much better position. And so that made a big difference. So conditioning, though, if I would have kept up with it, I'm sure would have been more helpful. So the recommendation is maintain that, right? Don't get off the path of getting up in the morning and exercising. Certainly be smart. I'm 45 years old, got to train smart, got to rest when I need to. But if I maintain it and it felt good this week, I'm kind of back on the path. So yesterday, kicked back in with, getting up early and working out in my new garage, and same thing today. And so that feels good. That's what I need to maintain. I know I feel the best that way. And for you all out there, it makes a huge difference whether you're a morning or an evening person. But, like I've recommended, and certainly, a la Jocko Willink, I don't get up at 4:30. I get up usually at 5 or 5:30. But it makes a huge difference and helps you start your day. So my corrective action is to get after it every day, right? Whether I alternate, one morning is jiu-jitsu and the other morning is conditioning and strength, or get back to a place where in the morning I'm doing conditioning and strength and I'm doing jiu-jitsu in the afternoon. So we'll balance that work-life balance, life balance with family and things like that. But every day we need to be doing that. The capability element for me is I would like to win, right? I'm going to be honest. Victory is the goal. If I keep losing and still learn and my jiu-jitsu gets better, then great. Because remember, I'm going against other folks that are on their jiu-jitsu journey. They're also doing jiu-jitsu. And we're all new. We're all learning together. So I totally understand the value in that. But I would imagine it feels pretty good to win a jiu-jitsu match. So into that, I am the primary responsible party for this action. I am the point of contact. Nobody's going to get me up, set my alarm for me, make me do the push-ups, jump the rope, practice shrimping, do any of that stuff. I got to do it, right? It's on me. It started yesterday. That's my start date. My completion date is there isn't one. It's an ongoing date, right? So that would be a nightmare for some project because there's, ongoing schedule or whatever. But when it comes to your strength and conditioning, your training, it's a forever thing. It's an ongoing thing. So there is no complete date for that. So again, for me in the conditioning area, it's something that I just need to maintain, make sure I stay responsible, make sure it's built into my schedule, and then get it done. And then try and manage those fears, those adrenaline dumps, focus on what's important. One of the great feedbacks was don't worry about getting your legs out when someone's trying to submit you, via Kimura. And I didn't get submitted in either match. I lost by points, which was great feedback and felt good from one of my coaches saying, that's a victory in itself, right? You don't get tapped out, which I didn't, which was great. But learned a ton. Again, I learned a ton that the phrase, you don't lose, you learn, is certainly true. So technically the box has an L in it, but I learned a ton from my first jiu-jitsu tournament. And for anybody that's taking jiu-jitsu now, I highly recommend it when you're ready. And again, that's up to coaches and folks that know a lot more than me, but it is an outstanding experience, especially, and I'll give a shout out to Revolution BJJ in Richmond, Virginia area. They're awesome people. They do awesome things for their folks, and everyone had a coach. So that was a huge difference maker too, is everyone from our team that competed had a coach next to them on the mat, and it was awesome. I actually went against one of the other guys from my school, and we had two coaches, and they were giving us all tips. So that was interesting too, but that made it fun. It wasn't as much of like, oh, I'm gonna get you and that kind of stuff. But again, great experience. So conditioning before your match, make sure you keep up with it for sure. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I mentioned that, this is up to me. So I can listen to music that gets me pumped up, which I did. I can train and drill and do all those kind of things. But when you step on the mat in a jiu-jitsu tournament, and let's transition to kind of, when you step on the mat of life, you're going to be your own change agent. one thing I'm realizing more and more as I try and get better as a human, as a husband, as a father, as a professional, as a jiu-jitsu player, as a 40-something-year-old that's trying to, keep my joints and everything healthy, is that it's really up to me, right? I'm going to be influenced by folks. I'm going to get inspiration that's temporary, right? So I'm going to be inspired to do different things, but then I'm going to maintain it. So I talked about this a few times. I got great inspiration, finally listened to a good friend of mine, said, hey, you should listen to this guy's podcast, listen to Jocko's podcast. Listened to it a few times and said, you know what? Yep, I'll get up early in the morning tomorrow. And then got in the habit, right? Started doing it. And personal and professional change is challenging, right? It can include fear of the unknown, self-doubt, enjoying the comfort of your regular routines. But when you're there, are you growing as a person, right? A regular person? Are you developing yourself as a professional? My development is, let's focus a little more on content. Let's expand a little bit beyond the narrow scope of your show. For me, professionally, it's how do I develop to the next step to become more senior as a project manager, to help manage programs, to get that way. And for me, it's through some education, through continued experience and developing, learning from the mistakes that I make. Absolutely. And I would suggest that to all of us. So where are you in your job? If you're in public safety, I've met a lot of folks in health and other, really in the Navy, particularly rank-based, or where there's opportunity, to go up in rank, where you would then be directly managing your peers or a large number of them. And in public safety in the military, that happens a lot. I know it happens in regular business too. But there's often I've seen folks that have been on the job for a long, long time, and they never want to advance because they don't want the hassle, as they say. They don't want everything that comes with becoming a sergeant and then a lieutenant and a captain and on and on and on up the ranks. And I never understood that, right? I never understood. I didn't, I wanted to advance, but I wanted to advance not just so I could tell people what to do, because that's not the point, but really because it advances yourself. When you advance to a new position or you advance to a new rank, your scope gets bigger, your growth gets bigger, your opportunities get bigger to enable those other folks to be safer, to work smarter, to have better work-life balance. So it's really, to me, when someone has a lot of on-the-job knowledge and they refuse to advance, it's almost kind of selfish to me, because now you're not going to go to a higher level where you can then spread all that knowledge even further and across a broader spectrum of folks in your entire department or your entire locality, or whatever it applies to, your whole organization. So just think about that, or consider it if you're kind of on the fence and scared to go to that next job or that next level or higher rank. Think about the opportunity you have to make sure that someone can be safer in their job, or help them learn more, help them get that credential they've been going after. It makes a huge difference in for folks that move up and move into leadership roles. We have that responsibility, right? It's something that we should do. So as you work toward your own improvement plan, if you choose to, find some good books, right, that help you get there. I have a few that I've read that are great references, and here's a couple that I recommend. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, which really talks about some of the things I talked about in this episode and others is you need to, especially as a leader, is essentially all problems with organizations, teams, whatever, come down to leadership. And then they have some great tips on how leaders can get better, and that extreme ownership of owning every problem and not saying they and those kind of things. It's a great book for that, and balanced with the dichotomy of leadership, which is their next book that came out after that, to help balance, because some folks were too extreme, meaning if I'm a high-level leader, some folks were going to very micro level and trying to micromanage every little thing, as opposed to kind of like an incident management is management by objectives. Like, hey team, here's the objectives, let's meet them, and then owning if your team didn't meet them because maybe you didn't communicate, kind of that way, not that I have to do everything for you. The other thing by Jocko Willink is Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. The best thing I can say is it's broken up into sections called thoughts and actions. Thoughts is really great, one or two pagers, maybe a few more in there, about, don't make excuses, it's up to you, here's a mode you should be in. Just great if you need to read something to get that pep and then do it yourself, do it. And then the other part is actions, which is exercise and eating, and talks about martial arts and those kind of things. So it's really good. It's great on audio book as well, or to listen to. I know it's on Spotify and those kind of things. And again, when you hear Jocko's voice, it's pretty influential in itself. The other book is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which in episodes, the intent of this podcast is every episode was going to use the golden circle model, and not sticking with it 100%. I didn't do that in every episode, so I apologize for that. But starting with that why are you doing something? And then, okay, how are you going to do this? And then what are you going to do? So that book really gets into the golden circle model, and it's a really great thing for leaders, for people at every level, for organizations to really consider, not just here's how and what we're going to do, but here's why, because then people get invested in it. And then Influencer, which has multiple authors, Patterson, Grenny, Maxfield, McMillan, Switzler. So really talking about how can you be that change agent? How can you be the influencer in your organization? And they have some great guidance in that book as well. And then Tribes by Sebastian Junger. And that's not necessarily that's really kind of a societal look, and this tribe mentality, and break some stereotypes that when things go bad, people don't necessarily go after each other, they help each other, and just a great book, and he's a fantastic writer, so I suggest that as well. So that's just a few books that can kind of help get that catalyst going. And then once you make a change, once you decide, hey, I am going to go for that next promotion, or I am going to advance this, or get that credential, or start exercising, mentally and physically, you make that change, you'll realize that you were the catalyst really the whole time, right? That the authors or other influencers that you listen to, they gave you a push, they gave you that motivation, but it's really you who makes the things happen. So don't ever forget that. You'll realize it if you're not there already. And it feels like the weight of the world's on you, but you'll really feel that, and you'll be like, oh, I don't necessarily need to listen to every episode to keep getting that motivation, because now I am that, of the same mindset, right? I'm going to do this because I know it's the right thing. Start small, take that walk, introduce yourself, right, to someone you don't know in your department, volunteer for a new assignment on your incident management team or some other, assignment at work. And just reach out and just try and grow. I highly recommend it. And so thank you all again for coming. We're on iTunes, Spotify, all the places podcasts are. I'm at PSC to PMP on Instagram. So thank you very much for listening to this. I wish you all the best. I'll see you in the near future, and Godspeed.